We're here with the 2025 Honda Civic Hybrid, 200 horsepower, 232 pound-feet of torque. Today, we're taking it on a fuel economy test. We're gonna start with some city driving, and then we're gonna hop on the highway, talk about what it's like to drive on the highway, and then we're gonna fill it up at the end to see what kind of fuel economy we're gonna get at the gas pump. All right, so let's go ahead and step in the refreshed Honda Civic hatchback. But what's new for 2025, of course, more than anything, is this powertrain boasting, at least on paper, about 48 miles per gallon. All right, so let's go ahead and flip this camera and let's start with our city driving on the Honda Civic. Now, if you missed my previous fuel economy test on the Honda Accord, which has a very similar hybrid to this, go ahead and check that out. I'll put on the screen what I got on the Honda Accord hybrid. I want to say I got about 47 miles per gallon. Not nearly as fuel sipping as the Camry, for example, but what it gives up, the Accord gives up to the Camry and fuel economy, it gains an overall quietness, comfort. The seats on there are a lot more comfortable than a Camry, for example. It's quieter than the Camry. And yeah, it just has some benefits over the Camry. It doesn't have all-wheel drive. That would have been really, really nice, but Honda will be bringing all-wheel drive to their next generation of hybrids, supposedly coming in 2026. So this model being a 2025 on the Civic, are we going to see a brand new hybrid on this in just 2 years? No, I highly doubt it. It's probably going to be about 4 or 5 model years, I would say, of this Civic Hybrid before it gets refreshed with a new hybrid system. But we should see that hybrid system in theory and the large platform vehicles for Honda with all-wheel drive, and then of course in the CR-V, the Accord, and then eventually the Civic. Potentially the HR-V. I think the HR-V could really benefit from having this exact same powertrain that we have here. 200 horsepower, as we found out in the review yesterday, is ample enough to get this to 0 to 60 in about 6.4 seconds, and it would be similar in an HR-V. HR-V might be a hair heavier, but it's pretty darn quick, and it would even be quicker than the Corolla Cross Hybrid. But Corolla Cross Hybrid, of course, has all-wheel drive. That's something the HR-V Hybrid, we don't know if it'll have all-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive, I should say, at all by the time it gets sold in America. We might be waiting a few more years still. All right, so on the screen, I have the Power Flow Guide, and this Power Flow Guide, well, I actually made a shortcut to it. I do have Google built in, which I haven't been using because I've been using my own Android Auto, as you can see, but all I have to do is press home and then click. Do you see how fast that was, by the way? This is the new Honda software. It is Google built in here, but I believe the new software is even on the models underneath of this, even though this and the SI, I believe, come with the Google built in. All the other models, the sport models, for example, and the Sedan, I think, has an LX model that doesn't have Google built in. Anyways, it's very, very snappy. I enjoy it. And then having this Power Flow Guide is going to be an excellent resource for us as we drive around. So on the right, you can see the current drive. I'm getting 46 miles per gallon. On the left, well, I should say on my smaller screen, you can see it's 57 degrees out Fahrenheit, which is really chilly for where I live. So I've been using the heat a little bit this morning. The kids appreciated the heat. Of course, this car heats up really well. All gas cars heat up really, really well. I do have heated seats on this Sport Touring model. And then on the screen that you're looking at with the speedometer, for example, it shows if it's in EV mode. So if you want to see how often it's running in EV, you'll just look here. And then it'll also be on the right-hand side here, you'll see that gray bar, which is a real-time fuel economy feedback. Now I believe some sort of feedback here as well, but it's not like instant, all right? It just tells me where I'm currently at for the drive, all right? But since I've been driving in EV mode here, this bar on the right is going to keep getting bigger for the current drive. But you can see over here, 51.2 miles per gallon. That's over the course of the 72.5 miles that I put on this vehicle. this week. This is the week of Thanksgiving, or we just left Thanksgiving week. And so I had this over Thanksgiving break, and I didn't drive it much, right? I was in the Honda Odyssey driving the kids around. I wasn't using this to take just a few kids to school at a time sort of thing. So I haven't put a lot of miles on here. It's been mainly just sitting in the driveway this week. So we're on a long jaunt here. And what can I say about its driving in town? Well, it is a little bit louder than the Accord. The ride quality, even though we have pretty thin tires here on the 18-inch wheels, the ride quality is really nice. It's definitely more forgiving than the refreshed Civic Si, for example. The steering in here is nice and tight. It's very accurate, but not as confidence-inspiring as the Si because that has summer tires and a beefed-up suspension. The brakes here are fantastic too. Honda's done a great job with a great brake feel. So bringing this vehicle to a stop is very predictable, which means it's going to be very, very safe. So the brake pedal and the brake feedback is fantastic here and very sharp too. And like I said, it matches the handling, the steering characteristics, and the throttle response from a stop. I showed you guys with the 0 to 60 yesterday. If you pin this thing from a stop, it just goes. And I do have auto brake hold, which is memory. So if I have it on my previous drive, I turn the car off, auto brake hold will stay on the next time I turn the car on, and that's this over here. And so what does that do if you guys are not familiar? It's a little button down here by my right thigh, kind of the center console, and the auto brake hold keeps the brake on when you come to a stop, so you don't have to keep pushing your foot on the brake when you're at a stop, or a stoplight, a stop, or traffic jam, whatever it might be. So it's a real handy feature, and I like that it's memory here. On the left hand of the screen is mainly just, you can only customize it with your media, all right? And if I have a podcast playing on YouTube, it won't show the YouTube podcast information. So if I click Android Auto, it'll show me my last song that was playing on Android Auto instead of my YouTube podcast. So that's kind of I mean, it's not a huge disappointment, but yeah, I'm not going to have, what's her name? Brenda Lee's face on the screen for you guys the entire time, so I'll just keep it here. The engine just kicked on. It is very noticeable. I wouldn't say, okay, so it's less noticeable, the engine kicking on, than it is in Toyota hybrids. If you strain yourself, you'll hear it come on. You don't really feel it come on as much compared to a Toyota hybrid. And if you look at the Accord, you pretty much never hear the little 2-liter gasoline engine in there or ever feel it turn on unless you're at a complete stop, which, unless you're pushing the AC hard, the engine will never turn on at a stop in a Honda hybrid or even a Toyota hybrid. You know, why run the engine when you're not moving? And so now, in terms of noise here, you do hear a good amount, even in town through the side glass. It's not annoying. I'd say it's acceptable for the class. I do get a decent amount of tire noise despite these 18-inch wheels on the Sport Touring being acoustic defeating design tires. They're supposed to kind of remove unwanted noise in the cabin. I feel like they have a constant, fairly loud white noise, even around 45 miles per hour. The Accord was much quieter with road noise compared to this Civic. But for a city car, I mean, I can't ask for much more. This car is very high performance, despite getting good fuel economy. It's fun to drive. It has great feedback from the brake and the steering. It's quick for the city, even though I'm focusing on fuel economy in this video. It's a really enjoyable car for the city. So let's go ahead and we're going to get on the highway here in a little bit, and we'll talk about the highway driving impressions, because that might be a deciding factor if you get this car over the Accord. I like driving this more in town than the Accord because the Accord is kind of long and boaty and big, and the comfort here is pretty close to the Accord. It's just a little bit louder. But once we get on the highway, I'll be able to tell you how it does against its bigger brother hybrid in the Honda lineup. Now in town, it drives mostly on electric, okay? The engine is never really assisting with propulsion. The only time the engine is on and assisting with propulsion in town is to charge the battery. And the battery's over here on the way left. You have a battery gauge here. You also have it right here. So the battery it's a fully electric car in town. I'll say that. It's just that you have an onboard generator providing enough power to power the battery, to give the battery power for the electric motor. Okay, so the engine doesn't power the wheels at all in town. Once you get over 60 miles an hour, to my understanding, that's when the car is going to clutch in the gasoline engine. The engine's going to be on, I expect, most of the time, even though I'm still in electric. It will drive electric on highway speeds. But you see we're running down this battery, okay? Once that battery is depleted, I expect the engine to be on almost all the time, assisting with, well, one, making sure the battery doesn't get dangerously low, but also the engine will kick in to assist the propulsion system, all right? And I didn't feel the engine kick on at all there, so just keep that in mind. So very smooth operation, just like the Accord, very smooth operation, even on the highway. Now, if we need, what's a passing power like? Well, I'm kind of limited by this big pickup truck, but going from 70 to 76, there's no problem passing this electric e-tron. And that's a big benefit of a hybrid compared to an electric car. You're not gonna have range anxiety. You get great efficiency in town, no range anxiety. And then you can refill really quickly. And they typically cost a lot less than an electric car. All right, so I'm back to driving in electric mode here, which I'm quite surprised. I don't remember the Accord driving this often in electric mode on the highway. The Accord also weighs a little bit more, despite having a very similar output hybrid system with a very similar sized battery. It's a bigger car, so I feel like maybe we should be able to get better fuel economy here on the highway, because if you look at the EPA estimates between the two, I'll put them on screen for you guys. I believe that the Civic rate's a little bit higher. Now that we're going 75, I'm not as much annoyed by the road noise. It's there, and this is a loud stretch of road, mind you. And I should probably put it on cruise control at 75. So if you look in the middle of the screen underneath the 75, you'll see that cruise control is toggled on. And if I press down, it goes green and it lets me know I'm locked in at that speed. And then to the left of that, there is pacing, which I have the lowest pacing on. We have pretty thick-ish traffic here on the interstate. But I have the target here, and then it's locked above, and then you see the lane departure going on. Now I have the steering, which is also a button on the steering wheel. So now it should be lane centering quite well, and it is. Of course, I'm going straight, but I've tested Honda's lane tracing on curved roads, and it works pretty darn well there too. All right, so going back to the noise, yes, there's road noise, but I'm actually more off put. Please, bird, save yourself. It got across. It didn't get hit. The more intrusive noise here is the wind. And people say, "Oh yeah, it's because you have the sunroof. You have a camera attached to the sunroof." No, it's 80% of it's coming through right here. All right. So a lot of air turbulence going on around the A-pillar, the passenger window, and that's where the Accord touring model has acoustic glass and is much quieter on the freeway. This is a pretty loud experience with the amount of wind we have coming here, and I feel like I'm having to raise my voice quite a bit. So that kind of concretes what I expected going into this, is that the Accord is a better vehicle for a long distance highway. Even though fuel economy might be slightly better here, it's just that it's loud in here despite having noise canceling wheels, because most of the noise is actually coming from the loud amounts of wind around the windows. And I just going down from 75 to 68, it's noticeably quieter from the wind aspect. So there's like well, now we're on a smoother road here. Okay, but there seems to be a large difference from 70 miles an hour to 75 miles an hour in terms of the wind. Yeah, there is, okay? But I'm also hearing these loud trucks around me. It's a pretty loud experience on the highway, which is kind of par for course for a compact car. So if you're doing more highway driving, I would get the Accord. You're gonna thank yourself because it's so much of a quieter experience. Or even consider the Camry. The XLE and the XSE aren't that much more expensive than this. Oh gosh, that's a loud truck. They're not that much more expensive than this. And then they have the dual pane glass on the Camry XLE and the XSE. So those will be better picks, honestly, overall, if you're doing a lot of highway work. And the Camry's really efficient on the highway. And this is where Honda's hybrids typically aren't quite as efficient as they are in town. All right, so let's go ahead. Oh man, that Jeep behind me is flying. So let's talk about what we're getting on perceived fuel economy, at least what the car is perceiving. I'm now up to about 74, 75 miles an hour. If you look here, it says I'm only getting about 30 miles per gallon. That's not good, but that's just kind of where it's at right now. I'm gonna go ahead and set it at 75 miles an hour and get my foot off the gas. And it's still saying about, oh, well, then it just went in full EV. So it's a bit tricky. It's hard to average it out because, well, there's also a state troop. But I'm just going 75, so it's nothing too crazy. But yeah, it'll run at for instances at about 30 miles per gallon at 75 miles an hour, and then it'll choose to go in full EV mode for stints as well. Okay, you see the engine kick back on. We're going about 30 miles per gallon again at 75, but then every once in a while, say maybe 20% of the time, it'll go back to battery mode. So it's not going to be that efficient on the highway, but I'm excited to see what our results are when we get to the gas pumps. We're only at 85 miles. It just went back to fully electric, so it seems to just go back and forth between EV mode and gas mode at steady state, especially steady state speed, I should say. And you don't even realize it. Okay, I had to look down again to see if the engine was running because I can't hear the engine. That's something Honda's done really well. If I do pedal down, I will say the Accord felt like it had more juice on the highway than this does. All right, I don't know if that's just a perceived or a real thing, but 0 to 60, this has the Accord, but it seems like the Accord has more juice on the highway. Their hybrid system is just a little bit different, so I don't know if that's just placebo effect. I don't know if it's going to show up on the screen for you guys, but I've just been on I-75 from Naples to way up here, which is Punta Gorda. I'm going to take, or Punta Gorda if you're Floridian. I'm going to take 41 back down. And that's going to give us maybe a little bit more of a well-rounded fuel economy, right? Because the first 70 miles or so was in town. I have 120 miles on the clock, so that was all at 75 miles an hour. And you can see I was at 50 miles per gallon. Now I'm down to 44 miles per gallon. So it definitely wasn't getting the 48 or 47 miles per gallon on the highway, nowhere close. It was probably closer to about 40 miles per gallon. Maybe worse. So we're going to give it we're going to try to feed it a really beneficial, this is Civic Hybrid, a really beneficial return course here going down US 41. It's going to take me forever to get back to my home in Naples, but it's a road I haven't taken before this far north anyways. I've taken 41 to Fort Myers. but I haven't taken 41 past Fort Myers all the way up here to Punta Gorda. So I'm going to take 41 back down, and that's going to be a much lower speed, probably somewhere 50-55 I would say. And I'm excited to see what kind of fuel economy we're going to get because of that route. All right, just filled up the old Civic, which is 168.1 miles divided by 3.563 gallons that I put in. What in the world? Look at that. Average fuel, according to the computers, 47.3 miles per gallon for the fuel economy. My calculation's 47.2, I guess you could say. That is crazy accurate after just filling it up. It seems to be far more accurate than Toyota's calculations, typically. So, wow, right on, within a tenth of accuracy, at least when you compare the two. So there you go. The Civic Hybrid is not very efficient. Guys, keep in mind, like, yes, it's efficient. Objectively, it's efficient. But 47 miles per gallon, I've been babying this thing, other than, you know, like a 0 to 60, but most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm babying this thing, just keeping up with traffic, not accelerating quickly, you know, running AC very modestly in here, sometimes just running the heat at like 1 fan speed. Like, I've been really babying this thing. I haven't pushed it any harder than I would say like Toyota hybrids or the Accord hybrid that I tested a week or so ago. But there you have it, 47 miles per gallon. Is there a, I don't even know, I haven't looked in here. Is there Monroney? I have a Monroney in here. What does it say for fuel economy? 48. Now 45 on the highway is where it sabotaged us. I do believe it can get 50 in the city, but I was getting less than 45 on the highway. I would say I was getting maybe 40 on the highway. It could have been worse. All right. So 48 miles per gallon is what it's advertised at. I got 47. Here's the thing. It's great fuel economy. It's super duper smooth. It's powerful for a hybrid, but there's no gaming to be had. And that's what I figured out with the Accord. As much as I try to baby that thing, it was just real. And I've been, you guys see, I've been in econ mode like the entire time. Like the Accord, there's no babying to be done here to get better fuel economy. Yes, I could get worse fuel economy if I just rotted this thing all the time. But honestly, just keeping up the traffic and using mild acceleration here, it's not going to get you better or better than advertised fuel economy. So even after babying it over 168 miles, besides the stint where I did maybe 40 miles on the highway, doing 75, the rest of the time has been pretty easygoing city. So there you have it, 47 miles per gallon in the Civic Hybrid. Let me know if you guys have a Civic Hybrid, what your results are. I mean, I don't even have hills here in Florida. The temperature using 65 degrees, that's pretty favorable for a hybrid too. It's not like I'm running it in, you know, freezing temperatures or anything. And then the fuel economy is going to go down even further because the lithium-ion battery is not going to be as efficient. So anyways, I'm going to shut it down there. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more fuel economy tests. And if you enjoyed this one, make sure to smash the like button. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.